well. But of course, because we're so fair, that also meant that we had to stop the anti-smoking ads for a period as well, which is something people sometimes forget when they remember those ads for cigarettes. Yeah, back to the factor of 10. The 96 Act just left these gigantic holes that you could drive a military convoy through, essentially, not just a single truck. They made no provision for minority or female ownership of any of these extra channels. So we were just multiplying the number of possible outlets and not diversifying in any way whatsoever. In fact, the opposite was done. It was the diversity was lessened by this act, and that was 13 years ago, and there's still been no change to that act in this area of diversity of ownership. And also on top of that, there was absolutely no provision made for any kind of funding through these stations, through some kind of taxes or spectrum fees or auction fees or anything that could be used for some independent, publicly oriented body to fund some kind of programming in this digital broadcasting age that we're in now. And again, for the last 13 years, this has just been, it comes up on the agenda at the FCC and at the Commerce Department Commission hearings, and it just summarily has been dismissed repeatedly. And so again, I hope you're getting a little bit upset about this, because there's some things are being selectively forgotten. I'll also mention a couple of interesting things. There's a pretty well-known media activist named Dee Dee Howlett once mentioned to me that in the whole history of public media in the United States, and she's been involved in that for quite some time as a leading advocate, especially for public access. She founded the Deep Dish Project, for instance, and is a very strong advocate for public educational and government access. She mentioned that there's only really been about 5 minutes when she felt that there was a possibility that the public media system in the United States could be actually democratically run. That there was a certain protest. There was a period in the 70s where there was beginning just little sketches of some real serious protests. Some independent filmmakers were mostly involved in this particular period. They tried to demonstrate, they tried to get their message across, but she summarized it by saying there was about 5 minutes where they felt like they might have had some power. And so that probably needs a little room for improvement as well. There was also, sort of a similar moment, actually. There was a community media workshop conference here in Chicago about a year and a half ago, I think. And one of the sessions had the chairman of the advisory panel for WTTW was there. And one of the people from the Community Media Workshop, just in front of a large group of people, said, and now can you relay to us, back to your board, the actual board of directors and your advisory panel, because there's 2 different boards. One has no actual legal power, the advisory only board. He said, can you relay to them that we would like this to be a democratic institution? And the man said, oh no. I'm just paraphrasing and shortening, but that's what happened. And you could feel it in the room. There was trouble. There was something was wrong in the room. And I'll call that was Chicago's 1 minute where we felt like there might have been a chance of some kind of actual democracy here where the public could actually truly put its name on this system. But that sort of passed. These periods of time come up. They come up, these windows for possible change come up when the technology shift coincides with a social shift. If you sort of get this sort of synchronicity between those two, these are these rare moments when you might have a chance. And I'm pretty sure we're at one of those times now where if we had a concerted effort to try to really fix this problem, that Steve and I have tried to present to you this evening, this would be the time. This would be the time right about now. I'm also thinking that I could give you a little bit more background, and then I'll sort of try to open it up and see what you all think and what you want to try to do here. But I would like to give a little bit of background on the Pacifica radio struggle, late 1990s and early part of this decade, because I think that's probably, to answer this problem that we presented, that's probably one of the better models. Now, it's a long story, and there's a couple of wonderful books. I'm actually, tomorrow, if you check on the ChicagoMediaAction.org website, I'll put a blog posting up at the top of the blog roll with some resources. If you're more interested in this and need more reading, I'll link you to some things. But the short version of the Pacifica struggle is that the Pacifica is just 5 rather good radio stations and 1 national board. It's a very small network. Of course, there's no Pacifica station in Chicago, and never has been, unfortunately. But through a number of incidents and moves and lots of politics, and through the 90s and even before, a situation was created where the chairperson of the Pacifica National Board essentially tried to centralize all the power in the National Board and tried to control the whole system, control the schedule, and make the system more like NPR. That's the short version of the story, is they tried to make it more appealing. That's what they thought that they were doing up there way at the top of Pacifica. But this very much angered the people at the local stations and the media democracy movement, which had already gotten a good start. Of course, this is all pre-free press, George W. Bush era media democracy movement, but it was definitely picking up steam at this point in the late 90s, and especially the groups out on the West Coast, particularly Media Alliance, were definitely involved in trying to really fix these stations and these problems and introduce much more democratic structures. The stations up until that point in Pacifica had been very, very modestly listener elected, and the suggested people from the community that were subscribers, they had some say in who ran the stations. But this sort of coup from the top just did not sit well, especially with the people in the Bay Area. And they got extremely upset over the course of a couple of years, and mounting sit-ins. There was, for a long time, there was a tent out in front of the Pacifica station. In the Bay Area, there was numerous protests. It was a large demonstration with perhaps 20,000 people. Now, if we could get, Chicago Media actually could get 20,000 people to demonstrate, that would really be something. That would be something that would be a major shift in the whole situation. We're not there yet, but what ended up in Pacifica by about 2003, in fact, just before the attack on Iraq, Pacifica finally had a set of bylaws throughout its system that now a majority of the Board of Trustees at each station are member elected, and those people elect the national board. So it's a democratized system of public media, and now, of course, Democracy Now! Is through Pacifica, but it's actually an independent show. But I don't believe without this restructuring, Democracy Now! Would have been nearly as successful nonetheless. So that's how we got Democracy Now! In fact. And so that's a good example. And so other sets of good examples, there are other lists of public bodies that have direct democratic accountability. And they're everyday and mundane things like school boards and libraries